Elysia is one of the most innovative audio companies that I know of. And it's quite interesting that their first product, the Alpha Compressor, still is one of the best modern compressors to this date. And luckily for everybody that cannot afford an Alpha Compressor, including me, Brainworks made a simulation of it. And it turns out there are a lot of little details and settings in there that you should know about. So let's take a look. So Alpha Compressor comes in two shapes, the mono version and the stereo version, and they are both exactly the same. There's actually not an analog equivalent of the mono version, and because they're both the same, we're going to talk about the stereo version today, because the stereo version has a few extra features. Now, before we're going to look at those stereo features, I want you to know that Alpha Compressor has full support for a mouse wheel, as most plugins have. And if you press and hold Shift, you go into the fine tuning mode, both for the mouse wheel as for clicking and dragging. When you press Command or Control, you can reset a setting, and according to the manual, when pressing and holding Alt or Option, you get into circular control mode. It doesn't work for me, so I don't know if that's a bug or not, but generally I don't think that circular mode, which is like grabbing a potentiometer and dragging it around, as you can see, it doesn't do that over here. It's not a very nice workflow. Like, just dragging up and down is easier. When it comes to stereo capabilities, if we unlink the channels and disable a mid-side mode, we basically have a left and a right compressor, and everything is separated in terms of controls and in terms of sound. However, if we press the channel link button, it will do several things. The first thing it does when pressing channel link is copying the settings from the left to the right. So you can see here, like the attack all the way open, release all the way open. It's here all the way down. Then press channel link, and it copies the settings over to the right. And now it does link all controls together. And even the gain is linked. And this is important because in mid-side mode, it is not linked. So when you're using this in mid-side mode with channel linking, this is your mid channel, this is your side channel, but you can change the gain of the mid and side. So it basically comes with a little bit of a mid-side matrix in there. Another thing that channel linking does is linking the gain reduction of the left and right side of the compressor together. Now, the first four controls on here are the traditional compression 4-pack, threshold, attack, release, and ratio. And what is interesting here, if we look at the threshold, is that it turns the other way around than usually. Like most thresholds that I know are actually, this is the highest threshold and this is the lowest threshold. However, I do think that this is more intuitive. If I now turn up the threshold, I'm adding more compression. Like it makes kind of sense to do it this way. It's just that my brain is now used to turning threshold the other way around. Small detail. Now, next to the threshold is the attack potentiometer, and you can set it to like super duper fast or 150 milliseconds at its slowest. And one of the settings that's on here is auto fast. And one of the things that can happen when you're setting the attack too fast is that the compressor starts to crackle a little bit. It starts to, it wants to attack quicker than possible. Whenever you get that type of crackle, you can enable auto fast. And by enabling auto fast, you're actually adding a second attack stage that deals with those transients, with those super quick peaks, and it will also release those super quickly so that it doesn't affect the compression. And what you can do with autofast is increase your attack time, because the autofast will deal with those quick peaks, and then the attack time will be the normal compression attack time. The release of the compressor can be set between 60 milliseconds and 1.8 seconds, 1800 milliseconds as it says here in the tooltip. This one also has an auto fast mode. However, that one is different from the auto fast on the attack time. What the auto fast on the release does is, if you're using quicker release times and you're getting into distortion, you can enable auto fast and it will change the curve of the release. And it does change that according to your setting. And that way you're getting less distortion on your release without you having to sacrifice your release time. This definitely helps with things that you need to pump up a little bit louder. So for instance, on master buses or something like that, where really the loudness and dynamic range control is really important. However, the slower your release, the less this feature does its work. And if you're all the way to slowing down, it doesn't even do anything. So keep that in mind. And I think you can compare this a little bit with how limiters work. For instance, the isotope limiter in the ozone also has an intelligent release algorithm, which is like, it determines the whole color of the limiter. So release and the way that the release is curved and that kind of stuff is really important for the sound of a limiter. So definitely play with these settings. The ratio on here can be set between 1:1, so no compression at all, and 2.4, so that's 1 to 2.4. What is important here to know is that the Alpha compressor is a soft knee compressor. So let me visualize this in a different plugin. We can see the knee of this compression over here. And this is indeed a soft knee. Traditional compression really has a hard knee. So it really has a certain point of threshold where it starts compression. And the softer the knee becomes, the more it eases into the compression around the threshold. The downside of this is that the ratio only is valid after, so if we turn down the compression, only like here is where the ratio is really the ratio, and here the ratio is lower. That's basically what is happening. There's an area of variable ratio, and same goes for Alpha compressor. How this thing is calibrated is at 6 decibels of gain reduction. The ratio is as printed on the front plate, or in this case as pixelated on your screen. When it comes to the ratio and basically this whole 4-pack, there is a secret, hidden, extra, other bonus compressor in here as well, which is the feed forward compressor, feed forward mode basically. And this changes everything. When this is turned off, it's a traditional feedback compressor, which is basically, because of its design, a very laid back, smooth, and all that kind of stuff. When it's a feed forward compressor, it starts to become very aggressive. And you will notice that it will respond a lot quicker on your transients and stuff. And this is also where autofast probably is going to make sense to use. And that the ratio, well, basically doesn't make any sense anymore. Above 1.5, so that's basically where the ratio name is. Above 1.5, the ratio starts to increase incredibly high, up to a point where it becomes a negative ratio. And what a negative ratio basically means is that whenever your signal goes over the threshold, with an infinite ratio, it would stay at that threshold. So my signal would be -6 dB, and with an infinite ratio, the output signal will be -6 dB. With a negative ratio, so that's basically compressing more, the signal will be lower than the input threshold. So normally it's the threshold or higher, but with a negative ratio, it's even lower than that. And this can create some very weird effects. Where I'm just completely, I'm removing the drums almost out of this production. And this is not possible with feed forward, like. Also, don't be afraid to drive Alpha compressor. Alpha compressor, definitely the analog one. What I've always been impressed about is how well it is capable to being driven on complete ridiculous settings. Like, it's very capable of doing that. And the plugin, little less capable, but still very capable. So really try it out on extreme settings. It's very, very capable. Now that's it for basic compressor settings. And on the next row, we have basically 2 sections. We have this section, EQ, and sidechain. Let's first start with EQ. What is in here is basically a small EQ to help you balance a track. And what this EQ is, it's a scale, a balance. It's basically two shelf filters with one of them boosting while the other one is cutting. So what you can do in here is you can select a frequency. So for instance, 1 kilohertz, which is over here. And you can also multiply the frequency by 10. This is just how the controls on the analog thing work. They might have been able to do this better in the software, but they've chosen to do it this way. So you can go from 20 hertz to 2 kilohertz or from 200 hertz to 20 kilohertz. Yeah, apparently. Anyway, if we put this one on 1 kilohertz and turn this one up, so 3.3 decibels, what then would happen in the background? We're basically going to produce this filter, so 3.3, where you are boosting the highs and cutting the lows a little bit. And of course, if you turn it the other way around, it will function the other way around. So this can be very helpful in your mastering stage to create a little bit of room in the air, that kind of stuff. Now, next up is the sidechain gain, sidechain frequency. As far as I could figure out, this plugin does not support external sidechain. So the sidechain we are talking about here is the internal sidechain. There is a sidechain within every compressor. It's the signal that is triggering the gain reduction. So every compressor has its normal signal path and an extra path going on that creates a signal that the compressor can respond to. And this one kind of works the same as the EQ. However, these are not shelves. These are filters. So it looks like this. And by turning this one up and down, in this case, we have a high pass filter. By turning this one up, you are changing the slope of the filter. So when this is set to -6 dB, I like that. Our filter slope looks like this. So 6 decibels per octave. If we increase this to, for instance, -12, our filter slope becomes this, so it becomes steeper and more filtered, and we can turn this all the way up to infinity, which is a lot. And the frequency where this filter is on, you can select it over here. You can filter from 30 hertz to 3.3 kilohertz or 3300 hertz. And again, you can filter either the low frequencies out of there or the high frequencies out of there by using a low pass filter. For instance, with this track, we can have it respond less to the bass drum by enabling that high pass filter. Here you can see it's now not responding to the bass drum. You can even set this one a bit lower, like this. Or only respond to the bass drum. There's some very interesting things with this. Like if you think about it, there are actually a lot of cool applications for sidechain. Indeed, to have the compressor respond to specific things in a track. For instance, on vocals, you can get the compressor to respond more or a lot to the S's, so that it compresses the S's more. And definitely with feed forward and negative ratios, I actually think that they should just display the actual ratios in here in the plugin then. Yeah, anyway, this video is a tutorial, not a judgment video. But you can do very interesting and versatile things with this sidechain setting. If you know of a few very cool applications of sidechain filtering, leave it in the comments down below, because this way the community can help out each other as well and can try out different things. All right, the next one is the bottom row. On the bottom row, there are 3 knobs that all have different functionalities. The first one is the mix knob, and this one is basically for parallel compression. So you can, compress the shit out of this like that, and then add in some of the direct signal. There are also 2 buttons next to this knob, and this took me a little while to wrap my head around. What happens when you press these buttons is that the mix knob is being disabled and you're just listening to the signal that is still enabled. And if you disable them both, it gets silent. So these buttons are only useful if you are actually using the mix mode, Or when you are playing with stereo without channel linking, you can listen to the direct signal of one of the things, or whatever. Next is the gaining. As I said already, gaining is linked in stereo mode and unlinked in MS mode, so you can change a little bit of gain difference between those two signals and do some subtle widening or whatever. Don't overdo it. The gain knob is only capable of going into the positive. You cannot cut gain in here. Yeah, you can with compression, but not with the gain knob. The gain knob is simply a boost feature. Now, the warm mode is in the analog compressor. It's adding an extra transformer. However, what Brainworks says about the digital version is that they're not doing that. They're not simulating the transformer. They actually use a slew rate limiter, which kind of is what a transformer does a little bit, but it's not the same thing. And it's a very, very subtle effect. Very subtle effect. I don't even know if the codec of YouTube brings this across, but what I can hear over here is that my transients are slowed down a little bit. They're not grabbing me anymore. It's very, very subtle. So it changes that a little bit, which also gives a feeling of a changed EQing, like it rounds up the top end a little bit. And in some cases it gives a little bit of saturation. Definitely play with the warm mode, turn it on, listen for a minute, turn it off, and just check what suits your application the best. But it's a very, very subtle and small thing. Now, the last thing on here is soft clipping. And soft clipping it's basically the opposite of brick wall clipping. Brick wall clipping is just driving your track to 0 dBFS, and soft clipping is more or less transformer clipping or a tape machine clipping, where there is an area in which your signal starts clipping and then a final area where it's just, fully clipping. So it's basically a little bit of the same as that soft knee ratio. It's soft knee clipping. I don't know if that's a genuine way to say that, but it is how it works. And this here shows it's weird. It shows a positive amount of dBs, but this is compared to the analog compressor. So you can see when soft clipping is active, when these orange lights light up. And what is good to know is that the soft clipping is inserted in the signal chain after the gain knob. So if you need more soft clipping, you can just drive the gain a little bit more. And you can perfectly gain stage with these two settings as well. Like if your gain is a little bit too low on the output, you can turn down the soft clip, increase the gain a little bit, and then you're having higher output gain with the same effect. Also keep in mind that the soft clipping is always left-right. It's independent from the mid-side mode. And that is basically because if you do this in mid-side, your whole mid-side processing gets weird. Now that is how you control Alpha Compressor. One thing, basically a control that is not in here, but is in there, is oversampling, which is a bit important. I won't say it's very important, but it's a bit important to have a higher sample rate internally, and oversampling is handled automatically. It basically looks at the sample rate of your project, and if it's at 44.1 or 48 kilohertz, it's oversampling 4 times automatically. If it's at 96 or 88.2 kilohertz, it oversamples 2 times. And on 192 or 176.4 kilohertz, it doesn't do any oversampling at all. So it's nothing to worry about. It does that internally. And there's also nothing you can change about it. Yeah, and you can also not simulate oversampling by running a high sample rate, because it will then switch internally as well. So it will probably always sound the same-ish. Yeah. Now, if you want to buy the Alpha Compressor, consider doing it through my affiliate link. The affiliate link will be in the description down below. And when using my affiliate link, a little bit of your purchase gets kicked back to me, but you're not paying anything extra. That's the whole affiliate thing. However, if you can find this plugin cheaper somewhere else, you should not use my affiliate link, of course. Never pay too much. If you want to learn more about the other Elysia plugins. There's a members only playlist with the tutorials of the other plugins. So if you want to check those out, I'll link the playlist over here. And if you don't want to become a member but want to watch more videos, I'll link an interesting video over here. Thanks a lot for watching, keep pushing, and bye bye.